So if you've been watching the news out of Washington, really in just the last 12 hours, you've probably seen the headline.
Oh, yeah, construction halted at the White House. It's everywhere.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the sources we're digging into today, they suggest this isn't just some, standard bureaucratic delay. We're not talking about a permitting issue here.
No, not even close. This is a federal court ruling that has effectively just dismantled the entire legal and financial foundation for that new White House ballroom project.
It's a really complex story. You've got constitutional law, global finance, even structural engineering, all crashing into each other. We have our work cut out for us on this one.
We really do. And the visual on the ground this morning, it's just so striking. I mean, you have these giant cranes that have been part of the skyline for months, and they are just frozen.
Silent.
Completely silent. And federal marshals are out there slapping these big cessation of work notices on the perimeter fence. It's a very dramatic image for a project that was, until yesterday, just moving at breakneck speed.
And that speed, that's a key part of what we need to unpack. Today, on this deep dive, we're going to get into the stack of documents that explain how we got here.
A $400 million project.
Ground to a halt. All because a judge's ruling exposed some, let's say, serious gaps in the funding and the so-called security protocols. We're even going to dig into the Japan connection, which honestly I did not see coming.
It's a classic story, really, of what happens when ambition just gets way ahead of procedure. There are a lot of technical details to get through, but it paints a very clear picture.
Okay, but before we get into all those legal weeds, just a quick reminder for everyone listening. If you want us to keep breaking down these complex stories behind the headlines, do us a favor.
Please do.
Hit that subscribe button, leave a comment with your thoughts as we go, and definitely ring that notification bell. It really does help us out.
It absolutely does.
All right, so let's start at the beginning. The vision. This wasn't just a minor renovation, was it?
Oh, no. The scope was, it was massive. The architectural plans that were filed, the goal was to completely replace the historic East Wing.
Replace it, not just update it.
Demolish and replace. The administration's view was that the existing facilities were, and I'm quoting here, operationally obsolete and cramped.
And the vision for the replacement.
A ballroom and event space that would rival the grand palaces of Europe. We're talking soaring ceilings, tons of glass, a footprint that just dramatically expanded the whole residence.
And the price tag for that palace was $400 million. Now, usually the government wants to spend that kind of money. They have to, go to Congress.
They have to get an appropriation, have it signed into law, the whole process.
But that's not what happened here. So how was this sold to the public?
And that is the absolute heart of the financial problem. The administration stated very publicly that this would cost the taxpayer nothing, zero.
How is that even possible?
The claim was that the entire $400 million cost was completely covered by private donations, a group of what they called ultra-wealthy benefactors. The whole narrative was that these patriotic donors were stepping up to modernize the people's house.
So taxpayers wouldn't have to foot the bill. In theory, that sounds great. But the judge's ruling seems to suggest the money wasn't exactly there.
Illusory was the word the court used.
Illusory, well.
Yeah, and this is where you have to understand the difference between cash in an account and a pledge. The court investigation, it revealed there was no escrow account. There were no binding contracts.
So what did they have?
What they had were basically letters of intent, verbal pledges, mostly from a small circle of hedge fund managers and real estate developers.
Yeah, wait, hold on. You can start demolishing a federally protected historic building based on a verbal pledge? I can't even get a cell phone plan with a verbal pledge. How does that work for the White House?
Well, that's exactly what the lawsuit argued, that it doesn't work, that it wasn't legal. Normally, an agency would need to see proof of funds before they even think about awarding a construction contract.
Because they found a workaround.
It seems so. They were essentially acting on the good faith that the money would be wired over as different construction milestones were hit. It was a pay-as-you-go plan, relying entirely on donors who hadn't legally committed a single dollar.
Which is fine, I guess, as long as your donors are good for it. But this is where the story takes that bizarre turn into international finance. Something happened in Japan.
Yes, this is the trigger. It's so critical to understanding why the money just vanished. We have to look at the global bond market. The Bank of Japan recently made a pretty big move with their monetary policy. And to put it simply, that move caused a massive, sudden spike in their bond yields.
Okay, let's slow that down. Why does a bond rate in Tokyo sink a construction project in Washington, D.C.?
Leverage. It's all about leverage. The financial analysis in our source material shows that a lot of these pledged donors were heavily leveraged in something called the carry trade.
Gotcha.
Basically, they were borrowing money very, very cheaply in Japanese yen to invest in higher yielding assets somewhere else. When the Japanese rates shot up, the cost of their borrowing just exploded overnight.
So their bill suddenly went way up.
Drastically. And that triggered margin calls. A margin call is when your broker calls you in a panic and demands you deposit more cash to cover your potential losses. Now,
So these donors who looked incredibly rich on paper suddenly didn't have any actual cash.
they had a liquidity crisis, their assets were all tied up, and they needed every spare dollar to save their own companies.
So when the call came saying, hey, we need that first $10 million for the foundation work,
The answer was no, or just silence. One report we saw says a major contributor pulled his pledge literally hours after the news from Japan broke. Donating 9 figures to a vanity project suddenly became, let's say, very imprudent.
that is just, it's terrifying. It's like building your house with a loan from a guy who's betting it all at the racetrack.
Mm.
So the money's gone, but the East Wing is also gone. They had already started demolition.
They had.
How did they even get permission? You said they bypassed Congress for the money, but aren't there preservation laws? I mean, the White House is basically a museum.
It is. It's protected under the National Historic Preservation Act. Section 106 of that act requires a whole review process that can take years. You need public hearings, consultations.
Oh, they just skipped all that.
They used what they claimed was a national security waiver. They argued the new ballroom wasn't just for parties, but that it was a critical security enhancement.
An enhancement that was so urgent it required immediate action, thus superseding the historical review.
That was the argument.
National security. I mean, that's the ultimate trump card in Washington.
Yeah.
Play that card, and people tend to back off. But the judge unsealed some documents that tell a very different story.
And this might be the most damning part of the whole ruling. The court unsealed a technical evaluation from the Secret Service, the actual agency responsible for protecting the president.
The ones who would know if it was a security enhancement.
Exactly. The administration claimed the new building would be safer. The Secret Service report, however, formally opposed the project.
Opposed it. Why on earth would they oppose a newer, more modern building?
For 2 huge reasons, according to that unsealed report. First was the excavation itself. To build this thing, you had to dig deep, right next to the executive residence. The Secret Service warned that this exposed the foundations to what they called subterranean intrusion.
You're digging a giant hole right next to the president's bedroom.
You're creating a massive vulnerability where one didn't exist before. But the second reason was the design. Remember the vision? Grandest palaces, lots of glass.
Right.
The term is heavily glazed, and from a security standpoint, glass is a nightmare. The report is blunt. It says a glass-walled ballroom is highly vulnerable to, well, everything. Drones, laser listening devices, ballistic threats.
So let me get this straight. They told the public they had to break the law to make the president safer, but the actual security experts said the project would make the president less safe.
That is correct. The judge called it a pretextual argument. That's legal speak for a lie.
For a fake reason.
A fake reason. The court found the administration essentially weaponized confidentiality, stamping things classified just to hide the fact that the project had 0 security merit and to avoid the red tape of the Preservation Act.
Wow, okay, that's a lot to take in. We've got phantom money tied to a bond crash in Japan, a security justification that was apparently a complete fabrication.
Yeah.
But I want to shift gears a little. We've talked about the legal and financial mess, but how does this play out for the average person watching at home?
That's a great question. And the sources have a lot of polling data on this. It's that classic split screen problem.
Yeah.
On one side of the screen, you have this massive $400 million project for, fancy parties.
And on the other side of the screen,
You have families looking at their grocery bills, the cost of gas, their rent, and seeing it all creeping up. The contrast is it's incredibly sharp.
and it really doesn't sit well.
Especially as one op-ed from a paper in the Heartland pointed out, for the older generation, Americans over 60 say, who value a kind of steady, principled governance. For them, seeing the White House treated like some kind of speculative real estate flip.
Where you tear down the walls before you've even got the loan approved.
Exactly. It feels reckless. It's a violation of heritage. The White House isn't private property. It's the people's house. And this whole thing just erodes that basic trust in government competence.
It feeds the absolute worst narrative, right? Conspicuous luxury at the top while ordinary folks are struggling below. I can't imagine even their political allies are having an easy time defending this.
They're not. The reports say they're struggling. Because how do you defend a half-demolished historic landmark and a giant hole in the ground that nobody can pay for?
Which brings us to what happens now. The judge stopped the work, but is there a way out of this? What's the next step?
It's less a way out and more of an ultimatum, a really humiliating one. The court order gives the administration 30 days
30 days to do what?
to produce verified liquid funds. They have to prove the cash exists and is deposited in a government escrow account ready to complete the project.
Verified liquid funds. So no more promises.
No more letters of intent, cold, hard cash.
Right.
And if they can't produce it in 30 days, the order mandates comprehensive remediation.
Remediation. That sounds like a very expensive word for filling the hole back in.
That is exactly what it is. They would be legally required to spend whatever money is available to stabilize the ground, fill the giant hole, and basically restore the lawn.
So they'd be planting new grass over the void where the east wing used to be.
Precisely.
Okay. Before we get to the odds of them finding that money, I just want to ask everyone listening, what do you think about this? Should private donations even be used for federal projects like this? Let us know what you think in the comments. And if you're getting value out of this breakdown, please subscribe and hit the bell.
That's a really good question because that conflict of interest angle is exactly why their options are so limited right now. You might think, well, why not just find new donors or get the money somewhere else?
Right. Can't they just go to Congress and ask for a bailout?
Not a chance. Congress controls the power of the purse, and given the political optics we just talked about, the leadership has already said they will not appropriate one dime for this. They are not going to rescue a project they never authorized in the first place.
Okay, so Congress is a hard no. What about, I don't know, foreign money? Could some friendly, wealthy nation step in and say, here, we'll finish it as a gift?
And that's where you run right into the emoluments clause of the Constitution.
Of course.
It explicitly forbids any federal officer from accepting gifts or money from foreign states without congressional approval. The president can't just take a $100 million check from another country to build a new wing on the White House. It would be an instant constitutional crisis.
Yeah. So they're completely boxed in. The original donors are gone. Congress is saying no, and foreign money is illegal.
They are completely and utterly stuck. And the walk of shame, as one columnist is already calling it, has begun. Every foreign leader, every dignitary who visits the White House now has to drive past this gaping blemish, the frozen cranes, the dirt piles. It's a giant billboard of failure right on the front lawn.
It's an incredible symbol. You start with this imperial ambition to outdo Europe, and you end with a mud pit that a judge is ordering you to fill back in.
And don't forget the final irony. The cost of that remediation, just filling the hole, is going to be in the millions. So the taxpayers, who were promised they wouldn't pay a cent, are probably going to end up paying millions just to clean up the mess.
Just to get the grass back.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. We lose a historic building, we compromise national security, and then we pay to put the dirt back.
It's really a perfect case study in why all those checks and balances exist in the first place. The Preservation Acts, the congressional oversight, it all feels like red tape until it doesn't.
They're guardrails.
They're guardrails. They're there to stop exactly this kind of high-risk, speculative move with a national treasure.
It's a tough lesson. And I think the question that lingers for me after going through all this is about trust. If the administration was willing to just manufacture a national security threat to build a ballroom.
Claiming it was for safety when their own experts were screaming that it wasn't.
Right. What else are they justifying behind that same shield of classified information?
That's the thought that sticks with you, isn't it? When national security just becomes a convenient phrase to bypass the law, it makes you question everything.
It does. We will be watching that 30-day clock very, very closely. It's not often you get such a clear deadline in Washington.
Either the money shows up or the trucks with the dirt show up. It's going to be a tense month.
It certainly is. Well, that's all the time we have for this deep dive. It's a wild story, but hopefully we've helped connect some of the dots for you.
Always a pleasure to get into the details.
One last time for us, if you found this breakdown valuable, please leave a comment, subscribe to the channel, and ring that notification bell so you don't miss the next one. We really want to hear your theories on this. Until next time, keep asking questions.